Just as there is a family day here in Canada, since the 1990s, there is a family day in Israel. And it is assigned to this day just ended, the first day of Rosh Chodesh, which is the last day of the month of Shvat. So today is usually celebrated as Yom HaMishpacha in Israel, Family Day, but this year Family Day is terribly painful for many of the families of Israel. Many families are incomplete. Some are mourning their fathers, sons, brothers, and sisters, now fallen soldiers, buried on Har Herzl in the military cemetery. Others are missing their abducted relatives, daughters, grandsons, grandfathers stolen from them on October 7th. And while many families would ordinarily spend Yom HaMishpacha going south for sunny hikes in the many beautiful national parks of Israel, there are so many wounded who are not yet steady on their feet. Since October 7th, Beit HaLochem, the organization responsible for the rehabilitation of disabled soldiers and veterans, now has 700 new members. And other families are unable to host one another as they normally would on Yom HaMishpacha for home-cooked meals and backyard barbecues because they have been evacuated from their homes. On the northern border, on the southern border, they have no kitchens now, they have no living rooms, because for more than 4 months, they are temporarily housed in hotel rooms. I will be lucky enough, Bezrat Hashem, with God's help, I'll be leaving on Sunday for Israel. I was invited to study with Rabbis Yitz Greenberg and Shai Held for 5 days in Jerusalem. Yitz Greenberg is a post-Holocaust theologian who has devoted most of his rabbinate to building bridges among Jews of all stripes and all streams. Some of you may even remember when he came to speak here at Holy Blossom Temple in the late 90s. He founded Klal in the mid-70s and took many personal risks, professional risks, when challenging every Jewish identity to consider its own limitations, and to see that the Jewish people is stronger because of our diversity. Rabbi Greenberg was the first to speak about voluntary covenant, that Jews of the modern era are all Jews by choice. He also famously says, "I don't care what Jewish denomination you belong to, so long as you are critical of it, or sometimes even embarrassed by it." Yitz is now 90. May he live to 120. He has announced that this coming week, will be the last time he teaches a group of rabbis like this in Jerusalem. So once I learned of this, it was an easy yes to the special invitation. He'll be teaching from the manuscript of his next book, and I look forward to sharing some of the highlights with you when I return. I've extended the study trip by 3 more days, 3 vacation days, so that I can see friends and family and colleagues, as many as possible, just to give out some hugs and to let them know that we think of them and hold them close in our constant prayers. I hope to meet up with some of our former Shinshinim. I'll certainly take my niece and nephew-to-be out for dinner. And our congregants, a cantorial student, Will Brockman, I'll treat him to dinner together with our congregant, a rabbinical student, Hannah Byrne-Wolfson. And I will bring your love and your prayers with me, and I will deliver them in abundance. So while so much is broken now, while so much is coming undone, while so much is falling apart, governments, coalitions, trust between allying countries, families torn apart, and families ripped from their homes, I want to speak tonight about the coming together, I want to call attention not to the ruptures. We know them all too well. I want to speak about the coming together that I see, the unions that are forming, the bonds that are being reinforced. In the footsteps of Rabbi Yitz Greenberg, I want to celebrate the bridges that are being built because they are many, and they should be seen and they should be celebrated. So I'll name just 4, I think. The first is Jewish unity across the streams, across the denominations. This week, I was invited to teach at the Beit up north with Rabbi Karapkin. And this was a rare treat to be housed in an Orthodox synagogue and to sit with my Orthodox rabbinic colleague. This meeting came about because of the Shalom Hartman Institute's initiative bringing young leaders together from across the city and from across the streams. And Holy Blossom is very proud that Jonah Kotzer and Natty Axelrod are our 2 representatives to this very special group of lay leaders. And Rabbi Karapkin and I spoke about Jewish particularism and Jewish universalism. And the people around the table, from Haredi to secular and everywhere in between, spoke very differently on these themes, actually. And it was really interesting to hear different points of view, different outlooks on life. And then after that evening study, I was invited to go back to the home of one of the Orthodox women. And we stayed there past midnight, actually. It was just over coffee, informal. I think there were 5 of us, 6 of us, all women of different stripes, fascinated by the other, asking questions about the other. They were surprised that the Reform movement of Toronto maintains a mikvah. They were surprised to know that Holy Blossom Temple has a twice daily minyan when Torah is read on Mondays and Thursdays. And I was surprised to learn that these Orthodox women do not keep the minor fasts. I didn't know that. So it was a wonderful occasion of coming together, and we should increase every opportunity for Jews to sit with Jews, to be curious about one another, and to ask good questions of one another, and to receive the answers open-heartedly. The second Jewish unity I want to call attention to is the unity across the lands between diaspora Jewry and Israeli Jewry. We are united as we haven't seen in decades. We're showing up again and again and again for rallies and demonstrations. There are missions going to Israel to bear witness and to hear the testimonials of the survivors of October 7th. And I'll shout out our Brotherhood mission to Israel. When is it? April 8th. And it's not too late to register. So you can speak to March 17. So the itinerary is up on the website, and you can speak to Cantor Rosen or Rabbi Kay.
Register by March 17th.
Register, okay, wait, let's do this again.
Register by March 17th. The trip is April 8th to the 14th.
Okay. April 8th for folks at home. April 8th to 14th is the trip. Register by March 17th. Thank you. Sorry, I caught you off guard. Okay. And even here, diaspora Jews and Israeli Jews are finding each other at Holy Blossom Temple. And I'm really so proud of this. Since Ne'ilah, we've had a number of gatherings for Holy Blossom Temple to open its doors to invite Israelis to join us here. And since October 7th, the need for these gatherings has intensified. We need to be with Israelis. And lo and behold, even secular Israelis need a Jewish spiritual home. They need a place to come and pray their prayers. They need a place to come and cry their tears. And so I'm so grateful to our partners at the World Zionist Organization who have helped us to build these bridges locally. And now the model is being replicated in other cities. Next is Los Angeles, so that's very exciting. The third unity that I want to call attention to is the unity that is being fostered among interfaith leaders and interfaith communities. Not everywhere, to be sure. In some circles, it's harder than it was before, but in some circles, we are finding one another in very meaningful ways. Just last Shabbat, 15 guests joined us here from Timothy Eaton Memorial Church, and Reverend Dr. Jason Biasi and I have crafted another trip to Israel, which will be May 2025, so you have time to save your shekels. This will be a Jewish-Christian itinerary, something very unique and special. If you've been to Israel many times, but not like this, I encourage you to learn more about it. We'd love to have you with us. I was recently invited to speak at Grace Church on the Hill, another example, and yes, at the end of the month, I'll have the third gathering of a handful of rabbis and a handful of imams meeting here at Holy Blossom, mostly just to prove that we can sit together, that we can be in a room together, that we can look at one another. And with each meeting, our confidence is growing. And then the fourth that I'll point out is the unity growing between the generations. I'm hearing many stories that are in the opposite direction, that sometimes there are parents and grandparents who don't know how to have a meaningful conversation with their children or grandchildren about the world now, about anti-Semitism, about Israel and the war against Hamas. And for those families, we have Dr. Betsy Stone coming soon. It's a Zoom-only event where she will facilitate very skillfully conversations among folks who need help in navigating those conversations between the generations. But the unity that I want to point out between the generations is that the opposite is also true. I'm hearing from grandchildren, young and grown grandchildren, saying, I understand my grandparents now in a way I never did before. Even the grandparents who are long gone, I understand now why they were fearful, or I understand why they fled, or I understand why they were so Zionist, or I understand why they were so committed to Holy Blossom Temple. And so now I need to find my way, my attachment to the Jewish people or to this congregation. So in that way, there's a wonderful coming together between the generations, sometimes articulated and spoken aloud, other times unspoken and quiet, but nevertheless recognized. And in Israel, too, the grandparent generation, the generations of the War of Independence and the Six-Day War and the Yom Kippur War, they are frankly surprised by the extraordinary courage of the young soldiers today. And the songs of the earlier wars of Israel are now the ballads that are sung by the younger generation. They are sung in schools and in public squares. There is a reclaiming of that early courage that was required to establish the state and maintain the state. And so there is an appreciation, one generation for the next. So I hope you can see this, all of the bridges that are being built, all the coming together, all of the unions and reunions. And that is part of what we celebrate on Rosh Chodesh. So we don't deny the dark sky on Rosh Chodesh. We know it, we see it, we feel it. We know the darkness all too well, God help us. But on this first day of the new month, we also look for any sign of light returning. We are like those trained witnesses of ancient Israel who are always on the lookout for the new moon, ready to report and to give testimony before the Sanhedrin. Each and every one of us must become a witness to any source of light, any moment of light, any flash of light. We have to train ourselves up not to become drawn down by the darkness, but how to notice every glimmer and how to speak of it, and to speak of it often. In that way, the light increases. When we name it, when we call attention to it, by definition, the light increases. Moreover, our sages teach that the Jewish people is like the moon itself. Like the moon, the Jewish people will never be lost, even when we walk in utter darkness. Tomorrow we will sing Hallel in celebration of the new moon, but tonight I want to conclude with a poem written by Ruth Bryn entitled The New Moon. If God were the sun, then Israel might be the moon, her face reflecting God's eternal light. Yes, the people of Israel is like the moon who waxes and wanes, grows old and then renews herself, yet never leaves the skies. Faithfully she reappears to walk the night, glimmering silver in the darkened sky. Faithfully she spreads her pale and ghostly light on every room and every tree and every blade of grass, until the whole world turns to silver, transformed from darkness to shimmering beauty. Yes, the people of Israel, the Jewish people, must be like the moon. We must renew our faith in every generation. Even when the earth casts its shadow of darkness, let us faithfully reflect the light of God and pour over the whole world the moonlight, beauty of holiness. Amen.